Good evening. Welcome to our Municipal Council meeting today for April 18th, 2023. I'd like to call this meeting to order at this time and ask if there's any declaration of interest. Seeing none, I will move along to our land acknowledgement statement. The Town of East Gwillimbury recognizes and acknowledges the lands originally used and occupied by the First Peoples of the Williams Treaty First Nations and other Indigenous people, and on behalf of Council, I thank them for sharing this land. We also acknowledge the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation as East Gwillimbury's closest First Nation community, and recognize the unique relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and the waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and we join them in these responsibilities. We are at item D in our agenda, and we have a deputation today, Bufardeci, making a deputation to Council regarding regulation of residential beekeeping in the Town of East Gwillimbury. If you would come forward now. Good evening.
Hi. Good evening.
Good to have you with us.
Thank you. Before I begin, I realized as I prepared for tonight that I will likely go over the 5-minute time limit, so I'm hoping to just have a couple of extra minutes if you would allow that.
I would allow you about 1 more minute.
Wonderful.
If you're finishing off for
I
sure.
appreciate
but
that.
You know what happens when you start and it keeps on going. So
I-
I'll give you a heads up. How's that?
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. So good evening, Madam Mayor and members of Council. My name is Teresa, and I am here to speak to you regarding the topic on tonight's agenda. My husband and I, along with our 2 young children, moved to Sharon Village last spring. Previously residing in a small townhome in a tight subdivision of Stouffville, we were looking for a property that would one day allow us to create a backyard retreat for our children and extended family to enjoy. We were thrilled to find that perfect home on Briarfield Avenue with a beautiful yard backing onto green space. But our dream quickly became a nightmare as the warmer weather approached and we began to experience the vandalism that my neighbors have experienced for years. Our cars, homes, decks, and patio furniture are consistently littered with bee excrement from early April to about mid-October, which is over 6 months of the year. 6 of the warmest months of the year that we should be outside barbecuing, swimming, and sitting in our yards, enjoying our beautiful ravine lots that we paid a premium to live on. Instead, we are forced to sit under a shelter or umbrella at risk of being physically pooped on ourselves. I am constantly fighting off bees from my children as they play in our backyard. Their outdoor toys are covered in feces. Imagine that, your own children touching and being exposed to potentially toxic bee feces every single time they step into their own backyards to play with their own toys. This is a thick, yellow, sticky substance that when dry cakes onto a surface like glue. A garden hose stands no chance against it. Not even a power washer has enough strength to remove this substance from a hard surface. This is not bird poop that can be washed away with the rain or general household equipment. This is a public nuisance that is obstructing resident rights to full enjoyment of their properties. And the town has the authority under the Municipal Act to regulate and even prohibit activities that create such nuisances. So when I spoke to the bylaw department, I was surprised to learn that although they'd received many complaints about the bees and the damage they were causing, their enforcement was limited to the language of the bylaw, which does not regulate the activity, but instead prescribes unrealistic setback restrictions. I questioned whether they knew how close the apiary was in relation to our properties, or if the subject location had been inspected for compliance with the setback requirements of the Bees Act and the town bylaw, Were they aware that as of 2016, the beekeeper, Mr. Murray, had over 5 million bees in his apiary and that number had likely grown? They could not answer any of these questions. By law, Mr. Murray may be within his rights to have an apiary on his property. However, as is the case for many industry and professional standards, beekeepers themselves are expected to conduct their own due diligence over and beyond the requirements set out in the Bees Act to determine the appropriateness of the location and size of their apiary and the risk that location and number of bees may pose to the public. These locations are most often in rural settings to limit negative human bee interactions like stinging incidents, allergies, and to consider the close proximity of neighbors, especially children. So imagine my surprise when I was informed that the subject bees are no longer on Mr. Murray's property. He moved his apiary onto the green space behind the property line. Not closer to the home he resides in, but closer to my home and the homes of my neighbors. To residents, the mere fact that he presumably sought permission from the owner of the green space to increase the number of bees in his apiary demonstrates a complete disregard and disrespect for the neighboring properties. He has not exercised his own due diligence or demonstrated responsible management practices. Instead, he will continue to impede on our rights as property owners, all in the name of profit and business, if this bylaw is not amended. We must consider the level of reasonableness here. Is it reasonable to expect property owners to park their vehicles in the garage every single day to avoid damage? What about those with multiple vehicles or work equipment? Is it reasonable for us to scrub our furniture, barbecues, and outdoor items every single time we use them? Or incur the cost of weekly window cleaning so that we can keep our blinds open? Or is it more reasonable for the town to hear resident complaints, assess the negative impacts of having millions and millions of bees behind our homes, and restrict this practice to rural areas to protect homeowners from this nuisance? Through written publication, Mr. Murray admits that this is no longer a backyard hobby to him. He is commercially farming bees in close proximity to a subdivision while skirting around a thin, outdated bylaw that was promulgated at a time when beekeeping was an activity mostly confined to rural and agricultural areas. His property is no longer situated in a rural area, and this is no longer a small-scale operation. These are facts that the bylaw must contemplate when prescribing an appropriate location of an apiary. Without an amendment, there is no avenue for property owners outside of litigation to complain when bees become a problem, and for us, they are a huge problem. As property owners in this municipality, we have the right to full and unobstructed enjoyment of our properties. And in my view, any nuisance that impedes those rights must be addressed by this council. I implore you to consider the following when assessing whether Section 15 of the bylaw should be amended. The content, consistency, and permanency of bee fecal matter on surfaces, the number of bees and hives currently in the subject apiary, and the resulting amount of fecal matter excreted from those bees on a daily basis, the proximity of the apiary from our subdivision with consideration given to the distance of their flight path, and finally, the severity of the damage caused, as well as the time and cost to property owners to remedy such damage. We've petitioned our community and have obtained many signatures in support of our initiative to have this bylaw reviewed and amended. I hope that you hear our complaints tonight and vote in our favor. Thank you for your time and for allowing me to bring greater context to this complaint.
Thank you very much. No need to applaud, but she did a great job. Thank you. I let you go a little longer than your 5 minutes because it was important that we heard your full message.
I appreciate
We've
that.
heard it loud and clear. We won't be dealing with it tonight.
Fair enough.
It will be at another time, but we will certainly let you know when it is going to be dealt with in the council chambers, and you and neighbors and whomever else could come and observe at the same time then.
Wonderful.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for the time.
Got a motion to receive. Councillor Roy DeClemente. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Oh, I need a seconder. Tonight I did, this afternoon I didn't. Councillor LaHaye. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. If we just receive, then there isn't any further action to be taken, and I think our deputant is owed a response, an official response from the town, and so I'd like to amend the motion to be that we receive and that we forward the information presented to staff for a response
And
a copy to
that
council.
was my intent.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank
I
you.
didn't say that, but yes, that was my intent. So, thank you very much. We've voted on that, so we're all good to go. If you'd like to leave, you're quite welcome to leave, and if you'd like to stay, we have a long planning meeting tonight, and you're welcome to stay and be a part of our audience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd love to stay, but we're...
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm at item E, and we have no presentations at this time. And I'll move to item F, and that's committee recommendations, to adopt the Committee of the Whole recommendations from the meeting held on April 4th, 2023. Be it resolved that Council adopt the Committee of the Whole recommendations from the meeting April 4th, 2023. Moved by Councillor Crothers, seconded by Councillor LaHaye. All those in favor? And that's carried. There are two items from today's Committee of the Whole meeting requesting same-day ratification. Could I have staff just speak to this? Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, if council may recall, at committee, there were two items that required same-day ratification. The first item is the Development Services Planning Branch Report, DS 2023-13, in relation to application notice of intent to demolish structures on a property for King Street. The second item is the declaration of state of climate emergency that was discussed at committee this morning.
Thank you. Be it resolved that Council adopt the Committee of the Whole recommendations from the meeting held on April 18th, 2023 as followed. Be it resolved that Development Services Planning Branch DS 2023-13 dated April 18th, 2023 entitled Application Notice of Intent to Demolish Structures on a Property under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act 6 King Street be received, and that Council approve the request to demolish the accessory structure on 6 King Street as shown in Appendix 2 to Develop Services Planning Branch Report DS 2023-13, and that the recommendations of Development Services Planning Branch Report DS 2023-13 be ratified at the Council meeting on April 18th, 2023. Whereas since
So through you, Madam Mayor, that was the first item. The second item is a lengthy resolution for the declaration. Should council wish to read that out loud, or perhaps I can share it on the screen, whichever is the favorite.
we'll share it.
Share it, sure. Just bear with me for a moment. I'll just pull the item up onto the screen.
Councillor Roy DeClemente, go ahead, please.
I'd like a recorded vote on that, please.
Thank you.
Through Madam Mayor, perhaps if council wishes, you can pass the first motion and then have a second. Sure.
Very good. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Crothers, Councillor LaHaye, all those in favor? And that's carried.
All right, so for the second motion, Madam Mayor, you do need a mover and a seconder, and Councilor Roy DeClemente has requested for a recorded vote. So while I have the mover and the seconder, I'll pull up the resolution on the screen.
Thank you. Councillor Johns, would you move that, sorry? And Councillor Foster, would you second that? Thank you.
Okay,
And I shall read it out.
just bear with me for a moment. No, I believe the intention is just to share it on the screen.
Okay, perfect.
So through you, Madam Mayor, the motion is before council on the screen. Let me know if you would like to scroll through the entirety of it or carry out the recorded vote request.
What's your pleasure, members of council?
Scroll through it.
Scroll through? No, no changes.
Okay. So through you, Madam Mayor, that concludes the entirety of the motion itself. Councillor Roy DeClemente has requested for a recorded vote. Councillor Roy DeClemente, how do you vote?
Yes.
Let me just. Councillor Carruthers, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Crone, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Foster, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mayor Haxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Johns, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Leahy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Madam Mayor, that motion's been carried.
Thank you.
I'll take you down.
Thank you.
And there it is. We're at item G.
We are at item G now, adoption of minutes, and it's to adopt the minutes from the Committee of the Whole minutes from the meeting held on April 4th, 2023. Be it resolved that Council adopt the Committee of the Whole minutes from the meeting held on April 4th, 2023, moved by Councillor Carruthers, seconded by Councillor LaHaye. All those in favor? And that's carried. Second one is to adopt the council minutes from the regular meeting held on April 4th, 2023, and the special meetings held on March 28th, 2003, March 29th, 2003, and April 4th, 2023. Be it resolved that council adopt the following minutes. Council minutes from regular meeting held on April 4th, 2023, council minutes from the special meeting held on March 28th, 2023, council minutes from a special meeting held on March 29th, 2023, and council minutes from the special meeting held on April 4th, 2023. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Foster, Councillor Roy DeClemente. All those in favor? And that's carried. Prior to proceeding with tonight's public meeting, I'd like to ask the General Manager of Development Services to provide some clarification with respect to the street name.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, there was an error in titling the original report submission. We were referencing Leslie Street, not Yonge Street. So the civic address numbers 18490, 18508 are correct, but it should reflect Leslie Street.
Thank you. We had a lady come and tell me about that, so good eyes. Thank you very much. We got that corrected before we got started. Very good. So, just going to go through here. So, statutory public meeting, a statement from myself. Members of the public, this portion of the council meeting is a statutory public meeting under the Planning Act. The purpose of this public meeting is to inform the public and obtain public input on planning application received by the town prior to a full technical analysis being conducted by our staff. No decision to approve or refuse the applicant will be made here tonight. There will be presentations from both town planning staff and the applicants on this development application. Following these presentations, members of the public will be invited to offer their comments or concerns respecting the proposals. Submissions can also be made in writing. It's very important that the town receive the names and addresses of individuals having an interest in these planning applications. If you plan to speak to council at this meeting, or if you wish to be notified of any future council meetings concerning the application being considered, you must provide your contact information to the clerk. This is the clerk. Under the Planning Act, the applicant or residents have a right to appeal any decision of council on a planning application to the Ontario Land Tribunal. but you must verbally express any comments or concerns here tonight or submit any comments or concerns in writing to the town before the bylaw is passed. The tribunal may dismiss all or part of an appeal made in respect of the application. This public meeting is being audio and video recorded for storing and broadcasting on the internet. Your name, your address, comments, and any other personal information is being collected and maintained for the purpose of sending correspondence relating to matters before council and creating a record that is available to the public in hard copy format and on the internet in the electronic format pursuant to Section 23 of the Municipal Freedoms of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Questions about the collection of personal information should be directed to the town clerk. Now, we'll have the application overview and introduction. I will now pass this portion of the meeting over to the General Manager Begin to provide an overview of the staff presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'm going to ask our Senior Planner, Antonio Greco, to provide the planning context for this proposal. And as you've noted, that this does not confer any approval or other consideration at this time, but really to provide the context and help the public to understand what is being proposed.
Good to have you with us tonight, Mr. Greco. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Before us tonight is the statutory public planning meeting for 18490 and 18508 Leslie Street. The applicant, Acorn Developments Corporation, for the zoning bylaw amendment and site plan application. Next slide, please. The subject lands are located on the west side of Leslie Street and within the Heritage Conservation District study area. The proposed development contains a 1 hectare, 2.47 acres within an irregularly shaped lot and wraps around an open space block to the west of it. 18508 Leslie Street contains 1-story single detached dwelling with a gravel driveway that provides access directly onto Leslie Street. 18490 Leslie Street is currently a listed property on the town's Heritage Registry. Next slide, please. The subject lands have an official plan designation of residential mixed use. The subject property is located within a local corridor and local center known as Sharon. The subject lands are also located within the town and the region's urban area. The residential mixed use areas are intended to provide a mix of residential, population-related employment, recreation, and entertainment uses. The intent of these areas are to provide opportunities for residents to live close to and engage in a range of social and economic activities. Next slide, please. The current zoning, 18490 Leslie Street, is currently zoned mixed use, 5 exception zone 84, holding provision 1 within the town zoning bylaw. 18508 Leslie Street is currently zoned rural. So the zoning bylaw amendment application strictly regards to 18508 Leslie Street being the rural. The MU5 zone permits a wide range of medium density residential housing forms as well as various non-residential and commercial uses, whereas the rural zone permits a wide range of agricultural related uses and also permits for a single detached dwelling. Next slide, please. The current zoning, this is just more specific into the exception zone 84, the meaning of the exception zone 84 and the holding 1 provision on the property. So exception zone 84 permits for all the uses in the MU5 zone in addition to townhouse dwelling with rear lane access, back-to-back townhouse dwelling, and a hotel/motel. And the holding provision 1 speaks to allocation. So the region and the town will need to confirm that servicing allocation is available and there is sufficient capacity to allocate for this proposed development. Next slide, please. As stated previously, the rezoning is subject to the 18508 Leslie Street property and to switching it from rural to the mixed use 5 exception zone 84 holding provision 1, which is consistent with the adjacent property to the south. The adjacent property to the south was zoned back in 2015 with the original draft plan of subdivision by Acorn. At the time of the draft plan of subdivision, they weren't the current owners of the 18508, which shows that rural zoning not being in conformity with the property to the south. Next slide, please. The proposed site plan application, the development of 65 residential units in the form of back-to-back townhouses. All 4 blocks will be 3 stories in height, specifically 9 meters. In total, 4 townhouse development blocks are proposed across the 2 properties with an internal private condo road. A primary vehicle access is proposed at the south end of 18490 Leslie Street, and a north access point would be strictly for emergency purposes and not open to any residents on site or public. Next slide, please. This slide provides a more detailed breakdown of the site plan and the development statistics. The site area, as stated previously, is 1 hectare in size. The total residential gross floor area being 89,695 square feet. The density FSI is being proposed at 0.83. For that specific area, the OP requires it to be an average of 0.65, so they're within the average of that density. The height being 3 stories, 9 meters. The total residential units would be 65 with a breakdown of 13 2-bedroom units and 52 2-bedroom plus den units. Total vehicle parking would be 94, a resident parking of 77 spots, and a visitor parking of 17. When you break that down, it becomes 1.18 per unit and a 0.25 parking calculation for visitor. Next slide, please. These are some conceptual elevations that were submitted as per the first submission for the 2 applications between Block 1 and Block 2. Next slide, please. Additionally, some further elevations of Block 3 and Block 4. As stated previously, these are conceptual and these are not final elevations. Next slide, please. The application is currently under review by internal and external agencies. The following matters have been identified and will be addressed in a future recommendation report to Council. The consistency and conformity with provincial, regional, and local planning policies, the appropriateness and compatibility of the development, confirming that servicing, allocation, and capacity is available, compatibility with the Heritage Conservation District and the Urban Design Guidelines for Sharon. Heritage considerations relate to the listed heritage property on 18490 Leslie Street, urban design matters, traffic and parking circulation impacts, and any financial implications for the town of East Gwillimbury. Next slide, please. Planning staff at the time of writing this report and presentation have not received any emails, but with that being said, leading up to tonight's meeting, emails were received in providing comments and viewpoints on the proposed applications. Next slide, please. Staff will now undertake a technical review of the applications, including discussions and comments from today's meeting. Staff will continue to comprehensively review the zoning bylaw amendment and site plan applications concurrently. Next slide, please. Thank you for your time, Madam Mayor, members of council.
Thank you very much. Okay.
So through you, Madam Mayor, following the staff presentation, there is presentation from the applicant or agent on the file. I believe we do have the applicant or agent on file. Should you wish to hear them, they'll be making their way to the podium now.
Welcome. Good to have you with us tonight.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here. Madam Mayor, members of council, I am Emma West. I'm a partner at Bousfields and a registered professional planner. We are the planning consultants for Acorn Developments Corporation, who, as you've heard, are the owners of 18490 and 18508 Leslie Street. I just wanted to add briefly that the notice did, in fact, identify Leslie Street, not Yonge Street, so the notice was correct. I do have the presentation up. That's great. So if you go to the next slide. And Antonio covered a lot in his presentation, so I'm not going to repeat, but I just want to emphasize a few extra points. So you know where the two properties are. They're on the west side of Leslie. One thing I wanted to point out is that they are south of the Sharon Public Elementary School, which I'm sure you're aware is in the process of relocating and will be moving in 2024. So just pointing that out in terms of the surroundings. As Antonio mentioned, the zoning bylaw amendment application applies to only 18508, so that's the smaller part of the area. It's actually about 15% of the total subject site area. The site plan control application applies to both of the properties that you can see outlined in red there. So if you go to the next slide, as was mentioned, 18490 is on the town's heritage registry, and you heard that there are single detached dwellings on both of the sites now. So on this slide, you also heard before a bit about the planning history and that there is an approved plan of subdivision and the zoning that went with the approved plan of subdivision, and that was approved by council in 2015. That permission included for the parcel, which you can see zoomed in on this slide in the bottom right, the area highlighted in red has permission for the medium density residential, and that applies to the 18490 property. As you heard, Acorn did not own the 18508 property at that time, and that's shown in gray there. And so the zoning bylaw amendment application for 18508 is to bring that piece into the zoning. And if you go to the next slide, you already heard from Antonio a bit about the designations and the zoning, but I did want to emphasize that the lands, both 18508 and 18490, are designated for an urban type of development. You heard that they're local corridor, which means that the intention is that they be developed for urban mixed-use, pedestrian-oriented development that supports transit use. So if we go to the next slide, again, the zoning bylaw right now provides that 18490 is zoned for a mixed-use category. Antonio already covered what that includes, but you can see here the area highlighted in gray, you also heard, has a rural designation. So that rural designation doesn't align with what's in the official plan designation, and so the zoning bylaw amendment will bring that into conformity with the official plan. The mixed-use designation, as you've heard, allows for a range of residential and non-residential uses, including townhouse dwellings and multiple dwellings, which include the back-to-backs that are proposed. If you go to the next slide. And you've already seen this plan on the screen a few moments ago, so this is the site plan. As you heard, the site plan applies to both of the properties. A total of 65 three-story back-to-back townhouse units in 4 separate blocks are proposed, and there's the internal private road network. There are a number of pedestrian walkways throughout the plan area, including walkways leading to each of the entrances to the units, and also walkways that carry around the edge of the site and connect to the open space areas in the surroundings. So based on the permitted uses within the zoning for that MU5 category, which applies to 18490, these uses are permitted. And of course, bringing the zoning bylaw amendment application forward to get 18508 into the zoning bylaw amendment to align with the official plan would allow for that site to permit those back-to-back townhouse units as well. And you can see that the 18508 is the area outlined in red. If you go to the next slide, a number of supporting studies with technical analysis and other detailed analysis were provided in support of the zoning bylaw amendment application and site plan application. I'm not going to go through and read all of that, but just to say that there's been a lot of analysis in support of the applications. And then briefly, if you go to the next slide, we just have a series of renderings so that you can see, you saw the elevations in Antonio's presentation. This first image is looking southwest from Leslie Street. The building that you can see furthest right would be the building that is on the 18508 site, and then the building that you can see on the left side is on the 18490 portion. The second image, if you go to the next slide, this just shows the proposal in the evening. It highlights some of the amenity areas for each of the units. You can see the balconies and the ground floor amenity areas. The next image, this is another view from the east side of Leslie looking to the southwest. And the next slide, this is a bird's eye view that shows us looking from the southeast. You can see the school site in the north, but again, the school will be relocated. And finally, the next slide. So in conclusion, the requested zoning bylaw amendment, as I said, that applies only to 18508 Leslie Street, and the site plan control application that applies to both of the properties, are consistent with the provincial policy statement, conforms to the growth plan, conforms to the region's official plan, conforms to the town's official plan, and are appropriate and represent good planning. I'm here this evening with the architect and the owner, and I believe other consultants are online, so we're happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you very much. We now will have an opportunity to, if there are any public comments from people in the audience, speakers are to give their name and their address. I understand that we have some registered speakers for tonight's public meeting. And Madam Clerk, could you please introduce tonight's speakers?
Sure, through you, Madam Mayor. We've had a number of individuals that have written to us. However, there are 2 individuals that have registered to speak at tonight's meeting. The first speaker is Denise Tennant.
Welcome. Good to have you with us this evening.
Thank you. My name's Denise Tennant, and I've been a resident of East Gwillimbury for 40 years. And I think everybody here can agree that the Morton House has always been kind of that landmark that you looked for when you entered into Sharon. I think that the presentation we saw today, although we understand that there's going to be growth and there's going to be development, the house, there's no mention of what's going to be happening to that listed home that's, already on our heritage list. I don't know if it's going to be moved within the development or somewhere else, but because there is that Heritage Conservation District study ongoing, if the plan is approved, that's not going to be able to take into account where the boundaries are going to be of that Heritage Conservation District. So I think, Madam Mayor, that we, and members of council, that we really need to look at what the future is going to look like for Sharon with respect to that Heritage Conservation District. The presentation that was made, I know that it's not finalized, but the architecture is incongruent with the Heritage Conservation District, and maybe that's a recommendation that could be made as part of the Heritage Conservation District. I know that all of the developers like to talk about the Places to Grow Act and the targets that we have to reach. However, I don't see any reason why we have to forego our history in Sharon. I think that that house could remain on site, closer to the road, and as part of the Heritage Conservation District, or at least congruent with the Heritage Conservation District if it's deemed to be outside of that. So I'm imploring the council and Madam Mayor to please consider the area and also the heritage of the area. I understand that, you know, they've already been approved for the subdivision in the adjoining lot, but that Morton family home is very important to the history of Sharon. And so I do oppose the actual way that it's been presented today, but I hope that there can be amendments made. Thank you.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, your next speaker is Elisa Teva.
Is Elisa here? Elisa's not here, I guess. Do we have another speaker?
No, through you, Madam Mayor, the individuals that have requested to receive information, they have not requested to speak tonight.
At this time, if there are any members of sitting in the public, if you'd like to come up to the microphone and speak, this is your opportunity. Good evening. Nice to have you with us tonight.
Good to see you again. Thank you. I've had an opportunity to review the proposal, and everybody's very familiar that we're going through the conservation plan. Oh, sorry, I didn't say my name and my address. Tom Horsley, 20326 Warden Avenue in Queensville. I've lived in Queensville, rural Queensville, for about 12 years, and quite oftenly I use Leslie Street as a way to get through to Newmarket, and I always find it very appealing to see the heritage in the area. When I compare your proposal to the streetscape of how it currently is, the commercial property is not at all representative of what that street looks like. If we compare it to Main Street Markham, I think about 10 years ago they put in a commercial property, and they specifically built it to look like the neighboring historical properties. I'm not an architect, but I'm pretty sure that anything is possible, and I'm pretty sure that we could have this look more like some of the house features that you see on these properties that are currently on Leslie Street. And as presented, it looks a lot more modern than representative of the current area. And I'm just wondering if we continue to keep the beauty of the neighborhood and make it a place where people want to come, just like Niagara on the Lake or, you know, historic Unionville or historic Markham. Now is the time to do that, and we'll leave a much better legacy for our children and the residents for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Anyone else that would like to come up to the microphone?
Madam Mayor, Council.
Could I have your name and
Oh,
address?
yes, sorry, I was just following Tom.
Yes.
Bob Hatcher, 41 David Wilson Trail, Sharon.
Good to have you with us tonight, Bob.
Good to be here. Question for Council and everyone assembled. I think, how many people have 1.1 parking space in their in their residences? I think it's going to be grossly underserviced, the parking. Like, we got 77 spaces for 65 units and 1.1 space for each homeowner. Like, no one here has 1.1 spaces, I don't think. And I don't think these people that are moving in there are going to only have one car. So my point I'd like to make is just they should do more parking or possibly do something underground. Is that an option? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. If you'd like to speak, come up to the microphone, please.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
I think
evening.
Many of you know who I am, Natalie Mann, 18885 Leslie Street. I just had a question, and it was just revolving entrance. It will all come in off of Leslie Street, is that correct? You'll come north, and entrance into this area will be directly off of Leslie Street, just south of the school?
I'm looking for planning staff to confirm that.
Did you want-
Go ahead, please. Will it all be coming off of Leslie?
The southern access point will be open to the public for access. The northern access point strictly for emergency services, but everything will come off of Leslie.
Thank you.
So the owners, whoever's living in that little subdivision will all be coming off of Leslie Street? Yes? Okay.
Good evening. Nice to have you with us.
I'm Rita Rizzi, and I live at 18460 Leslie Street, which is at the south of this building. Speaking of the roads, I can't even get out of my driveway now. What's going to happen when all this stuff is done? Are you going to widen Leslie Street? Like, it's already like jammed way past my driveway in the morning, and nighttime, it's either if you're going in the morning, if you're going south or north in the night. Like, I don't understand that. That's my point. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening.
And your name, please?
James.
James, nice to have you with us.
REPAS, number 9, Colonel Whaling Boulevard. Personally, the zoning part of it would not, I don't see a problem personally with that, the rezoning of the little parcel of land. The concerns of the historical portion of the property or the house that's on that, it's important. The past is important, but the future is even much more important. This is people that are going to be coming in there in our town, young families, most likely they'll have children, most likely it'll be mother, father, whatever. And most likely these people are going to have a huge mortgage because things are where they are today. They'll both have to work. They'll both need a car. 1.1 parking spot. The planners should have another look at this type of proposal because history would not look kindly on this type of a thing. I do not see on that site how, with 89,000 square feet of development on 1 hectare, consisting approximately of, let's say, 90,000 square feet plus, whatever the math works out to be, where's the snow going to be piled? Where are we going to have green spaces other than pretend trees that are planted over there to do what? I'm not sure. There's got to be more parking. There's too much development there. One of those buildings, perhaps the council can consider cutting them out, make some more room, more space. We have to think of the families that are going to come in there. If we're going to pack them in like sardines, that's not going to bode well for our society because we're already overstressed everywhere else with traffic and all kinds of other things. I think we should have a good look at this one here, and the needs of our growing society in general, immigration and such, should be put second to the comfort and well-being of the families that we're trying to raise. It's very important that children have a playground where to go, and that park that's over on the north corner of that intersection, it may be nice to have, but it's not enough. We need to have it where those families are living. There's got to be a little room there. There's got to be more parking. There's got to be a road where, in an emergency, if a fire truck comes in or something that's some other vehicle that is of some size, garbage truck, I'm not sure how these things work, but there's not enough room, according to that drawing that was up there. I think the town planners have to send back the builders planners and give them a little bit of a lecture about how we need a little bit less building and more room. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to come and speak? Please, come ahead.
I'm Jeanette Champ, 134 Countryman Road, Sharon. I had a question.
Welcome, good to have you with us.
Thank you. Madam Mayor and members of council, my question is, upon the review of the plans that were submitted for the rezoning of that little section and the current existing zoning for the bigger section, will that be put on hold until the heritage study is complete? Until those, because now we have this before the town to consider, but then we're also doing the study. And I'm concerned that the study gets completed after they already approve and submit and build this plan. So my concern is the timing of all this and whether we can sort of get the heritage done first and then move forward with other things.
Thank you. I don't have the answer, nor I'm not sure members of council, but our planner would have that answer. So I would ask from the planning department, when does a heritage study take place? What's the timing
Through
of
you,
it?
Madam Mayor. Well, we're still at an early stage where they're doing the initial review to determine whether or not there is an appetite for a heritage conservation district. So that's not a foregone conclusion at this time. I don't think that that activity can necessarily stop development. That being said, I think we've heard a lot of comments about the importance of incorporating heritage elements, and you know, as town staff has not yet initiated the technical review of the proposal, so I think those are conversations that we need to be mindful of going forward. But the limits and what the Heritage Conservation District is intended to achieve is still very much in sort of the early stages of discussion. So it's probably too early to talk about what it will or won't do. It may never actually be established, or it may be established with a different boundary than was initially proposed. But I do think there are a number of discussions to have about maintaining the heritage look and feel and how, or what the disposition of the heritage property is going to be as well.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to come to the microphone? Councillor Roy DiClemente, go ahead, please.
Just in case there's no one from the public, there was a couple of thoughts that I wanted to share and some questions that I did have. As far as I know, yes, the Sharon Public School is building a new structure over on Morel Boulevard, but to my knowledge, and perhaps staff can confirm, the school board has not indicated what their plans are for that land, and there's quite a lengthy disposition policy that needs to be gone through. Through you, Madam Mayor, to staff, has the school board indicated what their plans are for that land?
Through you, Madam Mayor, not officially as yet, no.
Okay, thank you. So that would be one thing that we would need to address. And I think, given that the northern access point on the site plan shows an emergency access that would abut the school property, I would want us to be cautious about approving any plans that might limit the future uses on those lands as well. So that I don't want us to bind the future of that piece of land by approving something that might not work here. Through you, Madam Mayor, I did want to clarify, there's a slide in here that talks about allocation being available. I think it's slide number 5. And then later on, we need to clarify the status of the allocation. Can you give me an indication of whether there is allocation for this property or not?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there is no allocation assigned to this proposal at this time. The slide isn't, I agree, it's not entirely clear. It's intended to define what the hold is for. So the holding provision, H1, I believe it is, will be in existence until such time as allocation is available. And so that's what it's intended to define. It's not saying that allocation is available. It says that would be, once that becomes available, then the hold can be lifted.
So right now, the zoning is that there's a hold on it because allocation has not been assigned to that piece of land.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, I wanted to make sure that we were clear about that because it wasn't 100% for me. I will echo what I believe it was Ms. Tennant said about the architectural look and feel of the lands being incongruent with the rest of the rest of the community. I think that's something that we need to keep an eye on. And then I'd also like us to be mindful of not just necessarily amenity space on this site. Obviously, we need to address setbacks from the open space that is just to the west of this land. And then I think we also need to be mindful of some of the comments that council has made in the past about connectivity and stranded communities. And while this is a small-scale development, it isn't connected easily to the lands to the north. So in order for these residents to get to Manorhampton Park, there isn't a proper multi-use pathway. And I'm pretty sure Councillor Johns has heard them as well, but I've received quite a few comments from residents in Sharon who would like a safe way to get from the community of Sharon down to Green Lane and some of the amenities that are there. And it's not safe to walk there because there's just gravel shoulders there. I think it's Ms. Rizzi who said it's difficult to drive, much less it's completely unsafe to walk. So I think we just need to be mindful of that when we start to delve into this application. Thank you for humoring me, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I would expect that the region of York would be looking at the Leslie Street at that point, right down to Green Lane. We've all been there on the corner and waiting for 2 or 3 lights to turn green again. It's a very busy area, and I would expect that the region would be involved with this project as well. Councillor Crothers, go ahead, please.
Thank you. It's nice to see density being brought forward because density often leads to affordability. But to the gentleman's comment earlier, right now, people who live in this area will need a car for every adult in the household, and this doesn't provide that. Density is great when you have a walkable community where families can get by with 1 car for the whole family, and they can walk to the doctor or walk to the shops and services. But this isn't providing any of that, nor is it next to any of those types of services. So I think we really need to be talking to developers who want to help us grow our towns, that we want to be building walkable communities, because that really is the way of the future. It speaks to affordability. If you can get by on a smaller lot, it's more affordable. But if you can get by without a car for every adult in your household, that's also affordability. So I think we need to look at things like this to have those shops and amenities, especially when they're right on a main street like Leslie Street, so that as we build out, those shops and services are there for people who want to walk to them, and over time, our community will become walkable. But we have to acknowledge that it's not that right now, and that people do need multiple cars, and this does not have that for the residents, and it will create a lot of problems traffic-wise just coming out of there. Having been at the school, for instance, it's hard sometimes to get out. And I think that adding 65 more homes, double that for the number of cars that are going to be there, it's going to be a traffic nightmare. Thank you.
Other members of council. Councillor Foster, go ahead, please.
Maybe staff can help me out with this one, but I'm looking at the site plan here, actually on the developer's presentation. So the north-south road that comes in from the south end of the development, there is some parking on the west side of that, it looks like to me. It is marked as a fire route. The other east-west road that comes in off the north side of the, or near the north side of the development is also marked a fire route. So that would be a continuation fire route into the circle that comes out. So I would assume there is absolutely no on-street parking there, I would think. The other thing that jumps out at me is there's a couple of renderings there that I think maybe should indicate a little stronger that the northern access is going to be a gated access. So it looks better for us to understand. But I'm also wondering, and I'm sure staff is onto this, if that's gated access at the north end, does that not cause us the reversing problem with garbage pickup that we've had in other areas?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the interior roads would be condo, so municipality would not be responsible for garbage pickup.
It's just that it's came to us before, and I know the reversing issue is one that's challenging, so.
We'll be aware. Any other comments, questions? Go ahead, please.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. I think it's important that I stay consistent with my messaging when we're going on public record on with regards to the residential developments. We've just come off of the fall election campaign, and when knocking on doors, people are feeling tired and wanting to catch their breath on building these residential developments. The fact is that we spoke about servicing issues. We can't service everything. The reality is that we have residents here that don't have access to commercial and industrial areas. We've spoke about schools, but schools is the interesting one because so the school that is being built, it's not like all of a sudden we've got this grand capacity of new able to serve new students. We keep putting more people into the area, but the services there, such as going to school and providing an education, we're not keeping up. And the challenge is that we just received a letter from the Minister of Housing and encouraged us, the municipality, to be working with the school boards to work out on planning. Great, thanks. The school board's already worked out on planning until like 2026, but we need money so we can build the schools. So the province can say, go, 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 and build all these houses, but if we don't have places for people to work or parks for them to play in or schools to go to, what are we doing? And so we need funding. We need to kick and scream and make noise so that people recognize that you can't just build houses and expect everything's okay without hospitals and schools and proper roads and sidewalks. It says right in the deputant's submission here, conform to the York Region official plan and conforms to the Town of East Gwillimbury official plan, and appropriate and represents good planning. And in this context, that could be the case. But the reality is that we're not getting any expanded hospitals, we're not getting any expanded schools, we're not getting any expanded water for 7 years. So I don't know how we can sit here and keep receiving residential applications when we don't have anything else. So I'm on record. That's my job to do that right here, and we'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. Other members of council? Oh, Councillor Crone, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to our presenters and to all the members of the public that came out tonight to give their comments. I think a lot of the comments that I was hearing in my mind, I'm checking them off. Yeah, you know what, I agree with that, I agree with that. There's certainly, issues I think we're going to have around parking, the aesthetics that fit in with the neighborhood. I think that's a valid concern. Traffic, concerned about that. It would be nice to know what the fate of the property next door is, so we could inform our decision making a little better. So I appreciated that comment. And I appreciate the fact that the proposal isn't any more than 3 stories. I think that will be a good thing. And I think Councillor Foster made a good comment about garbage collection. And what if it is indeed a condo setup, I think we need to be very crystal clear with the people who buy a unit there, what services they are responsible for as the condo corporation and what the town services are, what we're responsible for, so that there's no misunderstanding. Because at the end of the day, when this is all approved and everyone's moved in, we're the ones left holding the bag, and we have to. If people are upset about something, they come to us, and we need to fix it. So it's good that we have an understanding at the outset. But I appreciate all the comments being made today, and those are my thoughts, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the opportunity this day.
Thank you very much, Councillor Crone. Any other comments, questions? I'll go back to the audience. If there was anyone that wanted to say anything, now's your chance to do so. Having said that, there's always an opportunity to send us a note, send us a letter, give us a call, come in. We're available most of the days. If one of us for sure or more will be here to meet you if that in fact is the route that you do want to go. Now, somebody had a hand up. Yes?
Just one point. That school or the daycare thing that's being built by White...
Could I have your name, please?
Bob Hatcher.
Thanks, Bob.
I thought you would remember before, but that's okay.
Well, we do, but you're a masked man, you know, and we have to ask.
Right. Well, Dr. Pecos said, there's going to be a resurgence of COVID this spring, but you never be too careful. Okay. What is it, a daycare building that's being built north of...
It is a daycare, yes.
Yeah. How, if the south end of this development is going to exit there and then people are going to be going into the daycare, how's the traffic going to work there? How are the parents going to turn north or south, or, how is there going to be a stop sign or a stoplight, or?
So there will be a stop sign coming out. There
Yes.
will be a lane turn going in, and I've just been speaking with the region about that last week, that there'll be a third lane put in there. The region, that's a regional road.
It's
And we
their
all
problem.
wonder sometimes why we're paying regional taxes, and that's exactly why, because they will look after the exit and entrance to that facility and anything else that changes along that way, either on the east side or the west side. It's the responsibility of the region to look after those roads and make sure that they're safe.
Yeah, so as we know now, people coming north up Leslie and the people from the daycare will be wanting to turn left and go south. It could be a real disaster.
Well, I can tell you that the region traffic unit is looking at those sites right now very carefully as they finish up the facility itself.
Okay, thank you.
Rita Reed, see, speaking of this, do you know how many people come up my driveway? Do you know how many people turn on my driveway because of this? Because they get out at the Esso station and they want to go south, so they can't. They come on. I followed people in, literally followed people in my driveway. So what's going to happen with all the stuff that's going on? Thanks.
As I said, region looks after the traffic in that area for us. Any other questions, comments? It would appear that we've...
Mayor Haxon?
Yes, I hear a voice.
I'm on the phone.
Oh, very good. Go ahead, please.
It's Gail Sanderson, 7909 Durham Road 30, Mount Albert.
Hello, Gail.
My
Good to hear from you.
Sorry, my line went blank. Somebody's trying to call me. Can you hear me?
Please say a sentence for us, so I think we're hearing you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we are. Go ahead, Gail, please.
Okay. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
I forgot my question now. I was wondering, when you're talking about this development, was there ever, because I don't remember back in 2015, was there ever a situation where it was brought up to have some commercial in front of, like when you're building these developments, like what people are saying tonight about where they can walk to and stuff for a convenience store or whatever within their establishment, so they don't have to jump in the car and try to get onto Leslie Street. Originally, was there ever a thought of putting in something like that where you have it in the front of the development and then you have the residents behind them? Another point was when you're building all these townhouses and such, was from each block, where are the visitor parking? Like, I realize there's 17 visitor parking, but where are they situated within the design? So that was like two things I'm asking.
You're asking about the commercial and residential. I think that's what you're asking about, and them sharing that piece of property. That would be the determination of the owners when they start to determine that they're going to develop that property, whether it will be residential, whether it will be commercial, or a bit of both. That's not the decision of the municipality, unfortunately. It would depend on the developer and then and the zoning, if in fact that area has the right zoning to put that kind of facility at that site.
But can the planning department not make suggestions? Because of all your different developments going in other areas in East Gwillimbury, cannot the planning department make suggestions to developers?
They can make suggestions, but it's the developers that are paying the price. And again, like I said, if the zoning isn't correct.
Well, in the end, it's the taxpayers paying the price in the end. The developers are paying to initially buy the land, but it's the taxpayers that are paying for the what people have said tonight when they come up to the mic about the situation where they're living at. And my other question was, within the block units, where are the visitor parkings? Is it all in one section, or are they spread out so many per block, or what?
I'm not sure, but I think I have someone here that is. Just a moment.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the visitor parking's on the east side of Block 3 on the site plan. If you were to pull up the site plan, you'd be able to see it. It's on the east side of Block 3, just abutting it.
And how many
17
parking
spots.
spaces would be in that?
17 visitor parking spots.
70.
17.
Oh,
17.
17.
17, yes.
Thank you. I'm glad I caught that. Thank you.
17.
So that's just in one area only in that whole site plan?
It would appear that way.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome. Nice talking to you, Gail. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Are there any other questions, comments, and microphone still lit? Go ahead. No rush.
Sorry. Natalie Mann again, 18885 Leslie Street. I'm sorry, that caller just put into my head something that I had never really thought. Is there potential that in this little subdivision that the developer could decide to put your neon sign nail salon on the bottom of something? These are only residential, right? She mentioned about having storefronts or things like that. You said it would be up to the developer. So I just am now in my head thinking
Depends what it's zoned for. Perhaps staff, could you step up and answer that question, please?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So when it comes to the zoning in force with the mixed use 5 outlines a specific set of permitted uses. Whether the developer wants to use it for townhouse dwellings or a mixture of residential and commercial, that's up to the developer, especially if it's a permitted use on site. Planning can make suggestions and look out for the best of the municipality and take the public's comments into consideration and make suggestions to the developer. But whether to enforce commercial or not, that's that's solely up to the developer on which permitted uses they want to use within that set of range.
Thank you very much.
So would that mean that would come back to council if that were to change? Like right now, the proposal is just for, you listed the number of dwellings. If there was to be a change where he wanted to make that alteration, would that come back to council to be considered then? Is that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think it's important to note that if the reason for the zoning bylaw amendment application is strictly for that 18508. If, for whatever reason, that was zoned mixed use 5, this site plan application actually wouldn't have a public meeting. It would be strictly a site plan application with a recommendation report to council. So if the applicant wants to revise his proposal to remove a block or add, commercial at grade, let's say, then they can make those revisions with planning staff, in which they would get circulated to all the internal departments. But further revisions wouldn't require another statutory public meeting. That would be up to council's recommendation if a second one would be required.
Thank you very much.
Okay, last thing. Thank you for clarification on that. My last question is just, is there an update on the status of what is proposed or what is expected for the northwest corner across from Sharon Public School? Have I got it right? The northwest block of land? There was the proposal for, again, a multi-story unit of sorts.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yes, we were around for that one, I think. Go ahead.
It's a little bit unrelated, I understand, so I'm not sure whether.
Go ahead, Councillor Roy DeClemente.
Just as I understand it, there's no update to share at this time.
Yes.
It was an application, we had the public meeting, and the proponent has taken that feedback and has not yet submitted, as far as I know. Am I correct, Madame Bégin?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, they have not come back with a resubmission. We've had a conversation with them. We understand that, as you indicated, they're incorporating the feedback and plan to come forward with a resubmission at some future point.
Are there any other questions or comments or? Okay, well, we will continue along with our meeting here then. And feel free to stay. So be it resolved that Development Services Planning Branch Report DS 2023-14 dated April 19, 2023, entitled Zoning Bylaw Amendment and Site Plan Application, Acorn Development Corporation, 18490 and 18503 Leslie Street, File ZBA 2106 and SPA 2115 be received, and that the presentation, written and verbal comments made during the statutory public meeting regarding zoning bylaw amendment and site plan application, Acorn Development Corporation, 18490 18490 and 18508 Leslie Street, file number ZBA 2106 and SPA 2115 be received, and that comments presented at the statutory public planning meeting be addressed by Development Services Planning Branch in a comprehensive report to a future council meeting date. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor LaHaye, Councillor Crothers, all those in favor? And that's carried. Okay. And we have correspondence for consideration from Raymond Cho, Minister of Seniors and Accessibility, dated March 28th, 2023, regarding nominations for the 2023 Ontario Senior of the Year Awards. And they're asking us to put a name forward from the seniors of East Gwillimbury. I'm sure everyone on council and probably every staff member here knows a worthy senior that should be recognized for all the good work that they've done in our community. Be it resolved that the correspondence from Raymond Cho, Minister for Seniors and Accessibility, dated March 28th, 2023, regarding nominations for the 2023 Ontario Seniors of the Year Award be received, and that any member of council wishing to nominate an outstanding senior for the Ontario Seniors of the Year Award submit nominations to the Executive Assistant to the Mayor and members of council before April 30th, 2023. I can tell you, all those in favor? Could I have a comment? Councillor Johns and Councillor Foster, mover and seconder. All those in favor? And that's carried. Questions, comments?
I think you're absolutely right that we have so many seniors that are so worthy of this. I think it would be nice if we can take a look at all those who are nominated and perhaps follow up. I know we have to pick just one to nominate for this award, but if council comes up with a list, that maybe we could look at giving out some sort of certificate of recognition on behalf of the town as a follow-up to that.
I feel an evening coming here where we have a bunch more out in the, I think that would be a terrific time. Good, okay. Let me just see, where are we now? We're at item J, Reports, Development Services Memo, Part Lot Control Exemption Bylaw, Countrywide Homes, PLC, 2304. Be it resolved that the Development Services Memorandum dated April 18th, 2023, entitled Part Lot Control Exemption Bylaw, Countrywide Homes, PLC, 2304, be received. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Crone, Councillor Roy DiClemente, all those in favor? And that's carried. We'll move down our agenda just a little bit more. There's no resolutions. We have 3 bylaws. Be it resolved that bylaws 2023-029, 2023-30, and 2023-31 be taken as read and acted and signed by the mayor and municipal clerk. Moved by Councillor Foster, seconded by Councillor Johns. All those in favor? And that's carried. Is there any other business at this time? Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Councillor Johns brought up a good point when we were talking earlier about the letter that we received from the Minister of Municipal Affairs about that urging municipalities to work more closely with the school boards to plan schools earlier. And it's actually quite offensive because we know that we are planning early, and having been on both sides of it, it's not the lack of planning that is not delivering schools, it's the lack of funding. And I think it would be very good for council to have a response to that. And I know this is under other business and there's no notice of motion, but I'm wondering through the clerk if we can put forward a notice of motion to discuss that at a future meeting.
Through Madam Mayor, is the intention to present a notice of motion today?
Councillor Johns has reminded me of this letter, and I'm thinking we do need a response. So what is the best way to get that on an agenda so that we can formulate a response?
We certainly, Councillor Johns or Councillor Crothers, you can forward that letter to our office, and we can place it on the May 2nd agenda. If there's a time constraint, again, like that could be dealt with at the May 2nd council meeting agenda, so that can be forwarded to us. Alternatively, to carry out a notice of motion today, you would have to waive the procedure bylaw and then go through that process in order to get it on.
Okay, so we will forward it to you and to get it for a future agenda item. Thank you so much.
Councillor Roy de Clemente, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe the province has also issued some new changes to the provincial policy statement, and there's some more planning things afoot. I believe there's some a bill that's before the House or something along those lines. So perhaps we, in conjunction with that, could also have a look at that, at those legislative changes that are in the pipeline, and have staff give us some idea of what that means for us. Thank you.
I agree, and I know that there are whirling around somewhere out there a change in how schools are going to be built for communities. If we could tack that onto this meeting as well, I think might be beneficial. Okay, I'm not seeing. Do you have what you need? Okay, yeah. Item N, the confirming bylaw. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-032, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council meeting held on April 18th, 2023, be taken as read and acted and signed by the mayor and municipal clerk. Moved by Susan LaHaye, seconded by Laura Lee. All those in favor? And that's carried. And we have an adjournment at 7:26. Whoops. Moved by Councillor Foster, seconded by Councillor Johns. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much, staff. Appreciate it. We've got a